Hi, this is Barry Brilliant, and we're off to a trip to Germany. And here we are at the airport. The first fellow we met was a fellow from Cisco, and I sat between him and Dagmar slept some of the way, so she was fairly rested, reading and entertaining herself. And by the time we got into the Black Forest, and here we are in the first walk of many up and down these mountains in the Black Forest where her father uh, lives. And it was really an incredible adventure. Lots of greens. We're in the Black Forest here, walking in the Black Forest and down a philosopher's path. And it's interesting that they spent a lot of time in the Black Forest, and here I am with a Scottish, and the animals there are all very different. This is an example of the elongated noses and ears of the creatures of the Black Forest. Incidentally, the Black Forest is black because of the pine trees, but as you can see, beech trees have moved in, which are a lighter green, and so now the Black Forest is green. And Dagmar and I had a wonderful time. Black Forest was run by the French, occupied by the French after World War I, and Dagmar is standing on a monument dedicated to a German man that fought for the Germans when the French occupied it, and of course they destroyed it. It was quite the scene, and here we are, just people doing little landscapes. This is a little train set outside. They're very ingenious with their building and their construction. Everything is tongue and groove, and everybody is very interested in ecology. This little church has all of its solar panels tied back to the grid, and it displayed so. And it's a beautiful little church right in the home turf here in the Black Forest. There's a lot of little hamlets in this little community, and Dr. Hoheneck, here looking at some of the slides, was the country doctor here and took care of all the people here, and that was the last part of his career as a physician. And Dagmar and I walked all over these hills, and you can tell that there was an incredible amount of greens because it rains all the time. And I like to sit whenever possible. We walked underneath these lovely little cable cars, and then we took it back. At the end of the walk, there's usually there's always a beer and a little meal, and this was no exception. We could see just everywhere in many different directions when we got to the top here, and you could see, you could have seen the Swiss Alps, you could have seen France, but it was a little too foggy. And here we are in a little ghost village. Give a German a chisel and a hammer, and they carve everything. It's fabulous. Well, and here's a typical German meal. No, no, no. Now it's a typical German meal. And this is the kind of facilities at the end of a long walk up. You get to see the ghosts, you get to eat the food, and it's all quite sophisticated. In fact, everything was very sophisticated in Germany, and you got to realize that there's a lot of ghosts here. It's a civilization, it's a society, it's a culture that's been occupied, that's been beaten, that's fought back, that has 800 years. And we're talking about our few hundred years of civilization here in the U.S. And here we are in Freiburg. We went to Freiburg for a day, borrowed Dagmar's mother-in-law's stepmother's car, and in the Freiburg church, I didn't want to go up the steps to the top. I just didn't feel like the walk. Dagmar wanted me to see the view from the top. But it's interesting to note that the church panels are donated by different crafts, like the bakers or the sewings and the wine merchants, of course. I found the ceilings to be quite fascinating, and how everything in a church is made to look up higher than eye level. A little skull in the center, some of them. It's very breathtaking, interesting to see what they've done here with getting people to look up into the elevations of life or hereafter. Spectacular. That's the pulpit area. Here are some of the stained glass that looks like the carpentry and baker, and this is of course the wine merchant. And Freiburg was such an interesting little area. They closed off the street for cars because most of the streets in Germany were made for horse and buggy, not for cars, and so it's much better to have central parking areas and public transportation and walking. That's a beautiful wisteria path and a little canals down the side of the road with carvings all over the place of all kinds of gargoyles and figures, and lots of people hustle and walking around. Oh, there's an alligator sculpture in the middle of the canal. That's a much better shot of it. And these homes, these houses, these buildings have been around since 1200. I think I saw some of the numbers. That's 1392. There's cafes everywhere, and the eating culture is very sophisticated. How people live here in Europe. Lots of space for walking, and interested in wind power, and the construction here is all designed to last 500 years plus, whereas we build things to last 5 years or less in some cases. Spectacular views, and we see these snails and slugs, and it was a lot of fun. And every morning was newspaper and choice of cheese and meats and very deluxe possible breakfast. And this is the cemetery where Dagmar's mother lies, and my dad would always say people are dying to get in there, as they always did. And I'm not sure if my father or another Jew would be allowed in that one, but we continued our trip back to Freiburg, and we can see that we're at the Apple store, and here we are at the church again. Markets were all over the place, and it was quite spectacular. We're very happy. Lots of lunch meat, kind of sausages and combination meat in which you don't know what body parts that food came from. And it was interesting. I'm not sure that bloodwurst is really for me. the workmanship, though, is everything was tongue and groove. It was really incredible. Everything fit. If a door was closed and locked, it would take a battering ram to get it down, and I don't even know if that would work. It's an incredible job that they do in their construction. It's their mindset. Here we are at Dagmar's dad's. I'm just shooting some of the pictures on the wall. One of those pictures that I just did before. Here's some family crests. It's kind of a story behind that, but that's another time. And their family crests go to the Dangles at 1462. Here's some modern part of the Hoheneck family, and Dagmar's home was filled with pictures of the family, and Dagmar's dad is a very loyal family person, and so was his family. His grandfather was raised by Jews, and when the Fuhrer wanted him to wear the uniform in school to be part of the Hitler Youth, it was those Jewish people that had that textile that made him the uniform so that he would be able to fit in and cover up his roots. If they had known of his roots, he probably wouldn't have gotten very far in life. And as it is, he lived the life of an adventurer, and he told us many stories. In fact, I have these audio stories of him and some video, and I'm looking forward to it. I've turned it over to Dagmar's son, or Carl Hoheneck, MD's grandson, Carl Hoheneck Smith, and he's going to put it together in a little mixed media piece with some of these stills as we look through his home. As you can see, they're very organized, and they've brought Ghana back. Dagmar spent, I guess, from about 8 to 16, 8 or 9 years in Ghana. Her father, after honorable service as a doctor for the German army, was wounded and transferred to Norway, where he spent the balance of the war, and then stayed on to help the people of Norway after the war. Then he came back to Germany and got a gig in Ghana as the head physician of this hospital in Ghana. And this is his retirement home, you could say. We walked all around there. He has a lovely little home, and he's a very wonderful host and a great conversationalist with many, many wonderful stories of his experiences during his life, all of his experiences. This is his time in Ghana. And can you imagine what it's like going, as a young girl, going from the sophistication of Germany to the primitive nature of Ghana? No electricity, no indoor plumbing. I can't imagine it, even with the clubs and the swimming pools and the dichotomy and the paradoxes between all of these elements. They're still in Africa, and they're still in very primitive conditions. And Dagmar, being the kind of gal she was, she hung out mostly with the people more than the club. And here she is with her little daughter, with her little sister Mitte, and Mitte is now a neurosurgeon, and I'm sorry, a neurologist, not a neurosurgeon. She does diagnostic. And there she is in reenactments, and she in Ghana was a very primitive thing where you could have as many wives as you could afford, and many of the kings, in fact, their first location that the family was in was to be a hut for one of the king's wives, for not for one, but a group of the king's wives. And there's Dr. Hoheneck on the right, and you're seeing the hospital. Here are some of the nurses that had helped out. He was an incredibly valuable surgeon, and there he is doing some surgery, and he saved a lot of lives, and he brought a lot of people into this whole situation of civilization. In the meantime, the kids had this little club from the mines there, but it was still incredibly primitive, as you can see. That's the kind of very sharp differences between things. It was an amazing, and Dagmar went back a few years ago to the I think it was the 50th anniversary. Oh no, yeah, maybe the 40th anniversary. And here's one of the nuns, and Dagmar and her brother were honored in Dr. Hoheneck's stead. Who knows? They were all very, very grateful. And this is Dr. Hoheneck when he was a young boy, and we're getting into some of his youth. And we visited his sisters, who live in Landstuhl, and they told me stories of him, and those audio stories will be combined. And I got the audio in both German and English, so it's hard to say which would be which. I learned all about the animals there, and particularly about electrical fences. Don't touch electric fences. That's what I learned about them, and I don't need to say anything more. There's a lot of growth, even fungus growth. The flowers were alive in the hills, and it was incredible. The brilliance of all the colors. The black forest, as I mentioned, is no longer black, as you can see. It is now such a multicolor. And here's a little portable cow milking machine, just on the land, and when they're ready to milk the cows, they just bring them in there and have at it. Dagmar found herself a couple of little ponies that she greeted, and they liked her very much, as all animals like her. And she rested from time to time, although mostly she worked me, and she walked me up and down these hills. There's a good shot of some of those flowers. Yeah. And here we are in Landstuhl, and we're walking around an old castle, which is on the top of Landstuhl, which we walked up to. It was quite wonderful experience walking around and seeing the family home that she comes from. And we're in the train now going to Landstuhl, and there were some very interesting people on the plane, on the train, lots of interesting things happening. And here we are in the local place. We see there's the local bologna and salami and the wurst, I should say. And here we are at Dagmar's old home and her aunt's place, and her aunts were incredibly hospitable and kind to me. That was 1841. That was when they did their remodel job. Now we're visiting Evie and Christian, or is it Augusta? and Annie, and these are folks that were raised with Dagmar. Well, actually, not quite raised with Dagmar, but Dagmar's stepsister. And here we are walking around the castle at the top, and this is the view. Landstuhl has the largest U.S. hospital in Germany, and everywhere there is a need for a wounded U.S. soldier, it usually comes to the Landstuhl Hospital. And this is the hotel at the base of that castle. And next door they're raising some birds of prey. The hills there were incredible. And here we are in an Italian restaurant, which was a really wonderful experience. They're very American. So Dagmar's aunts had a relative that wrote the family tree as he remembered it. He got it back as far as 1712 from his memory. And you can imagine the kind of records that they wanted to keep. There is Carl, Dr. Carl, that really motivated Carl Hoheneck to become an MD and a surgeon. And there's Dagmar, and I'm just taking pictures randomly around the aunt's home. That's the desk. And she has two aunts, Aunt Emmy and Aunt Liz, and there's Aunt Liz with her husband, and there's Aunt Emmy with her fiancé, and they both had such interesting life stories, one traveling a lot, the other never leaving the area. But both stories are incredibly interesting. And Philip was Tante Liz's husband, who is a German teacher from Davis. They lived in Davis together, and then they went back to Germany to live, and he passed away shortly after they got back to Germany and set things up. An incredible lady, and I so enjoyed meeting all of Dagmar's family. They're very hospitable, very engaging, very filled with passion for life. Everyone there seemed to have the same way of loving life to its fullest. They had their rituals and their routines, and they enjoyed every single one of them. Here's an example of a little market. All you need is a couple of carts, and a cheese cart, a meat cart, a little ready-made food on the go, and some fruits and vegetables, and of course the wurst. Lots of wurst. And it's quite an experience. The culture is very much different than what I'm used to. Organized meals, very interesting. And here's a document that we found in one of the drawers that establishes the purebredness which you needed during the Hitler time in order to get married. You had to make sure you weren't of crazy blood or any suicides in the family, or any gypsy blood. Nothing, of course. And we stopped on their way back to the Black Forest at a nice winery, and had a little wine, and then we went to eat in this little town, and we just enjoyed it. Enjoyed the entire experience. At all of these places, you can always get a wurst, and there's so many different kinds. And there's Dagmar having the only ice cream that I've actually seen her eat in about a year. Um, The asparagus is interesting there. It was in season, and so we picked some up, and we had some at different restaurants. It's white. They grow it underground, and it's quite different than the kind of asparagus that I'm used to, and very interesting. We had a wonderful time, and you could see aircraft coming in, carriers coming in to the local base to go to the hospital, I would imagine. And we climbed and we climbed, and here we're back in the Black Forest, and we're making a climb up to the top of one of the peaks, which Dagmar's father was being driven to join us with his brother, with her brother Fritz. Here's Dagmar and I. And we got very excited about going. In fact, Elizabeth here, Maximilian and Rita, Elizabeth is getting up and doing a little display for us with excitement and anticipation for the lunch, which actually was pretty good. I had ham and eggs. And it was quite a nice little walk. In fact, every walk is quite a nice little walk. I've never not had quite a walk. It seems farther than I'm led to believe. But here we are at the lunch place. Oh, and this is the dinner place that we went to, and that's Jeff and Christine that were from England, but Christine was raised in Ghana, knew Dagmar, and was good friends, her father and Dagmar's father. And there's Fritz and Mitta and Rita and Dr. Hoheneck and those lovely Scottish cattle. And here I am. As you can see, I carry an umbrella, and because I carried the umbrella, it didn't rain, of course. And here's a squirrel with the little ears, like I was talking about. This is the front door of Dr. Hoheneck's, and the land is very interesting. Here we are at a little supermarket that we're selling mountain bikes. I was fascinated by the mountain bikes and the shopping carts, which have coin connections. They're chains. You put the coin in. You don't see carts on the street. They put the carts back in. They get the coin. Makes a lot of sense. And so we stopped and visited Dagmar's old boyfriend's mother. And there are these troughs that are everywhere all along the landscape. Troughs and little wading pools. And I noticed hardly any fences. Lots of wood piles, but no fences. And people could go around and through vineyards. And there's all these troughs for animals, because animals kind of like are intermingled with the people. This is farmland, and it's an incredible kind of merging of nature and man. They need the wood. They need the wood to heat their houses, and they put the animals in the basement of the houses during the nighttime, and it's all very colorful and very, very organized. There's an example of the wading pools. Lots of pride in the way things look on the outside and, of course, on the inside. Lots of reminiscences of Africa were found as you walked around the house. And the organization of the eating and everything was very elegant. And you can see from Dr. Hoheneck's book collection how well read this man was and is, and very lucid at almost 90 now. So I was very interested in the depth and the breadth of his library. We stopped by a watch shop, and I took some pictures of cuckoos, and we left shortly after that. And here we are getting picked up from the airport. There's Rita. She picked us up in Zurich. We went from on our way home to Zurich, and everything in Switzerland and in Germany was very detailed and very organized, and lots of, as you saw, Jewish things and intermixing. Here we are in Fritz's and Rita's. That's Dagmar's brother and sister-in-law's home, elegant home. And their kids are very, very nice and well-mannered kids. And the architecture in the house is one of the most unusual homes I've ever seen. I don't know that there was a right angle anywhere. But anyhow, we took the cable car up to the top, and as we did, we passed over their house, and there it is right there. You can see the front of their house and the back of their house as we're going up the cable car. We get up to the top, and we see the most beautiful view of Zurich, and such views. And that's one of the advantages of taking a cable car as opposed to walking, is that we were there in minutes, and fairly expensive, but it only took minutes. So, and it was a lot easier than walking up. Gosh, I think it would have taken us an hour and a half to walk up. But you can see the spectacular views, and all in all, you can see that while I do have a little cough left from the trip, I'm pretty excited about the fabulous people and I met, and I got to share Dagmar's life in how she lived in her Germany part. Ghana, of course, I can't possibly fathom, but we enjoyed ourselves. And there's a lot of these little restaurants that are outside at the top. You know, we've talked about that earlier in this slideshow. Well, everywhere we went was like that. Everywhere. I had these very fun beer, food locations. We were going to meet Fritz up here, but he didn't show. He came a few minutes later. We went up to where the hang gliders were, and so we had some fun watching the hang gliders as they caught their wind. Excuse me. This is not a cemetery. That was a picnic table area. They just didn't put the wood on the top. So at least you can see the story of how beautiful and exotic and different the plants, the people, and the life is in Germany and Switzerland. And I just urge you to walk the walk up the hill and see the view as we have. It was a wonderful trip, and I'm very thankful to everybody that was so kind. So if you're listening to this and you were one of those people, thank you so very, very much for this lovely, lovely 2 weeks. I'll always appreciate I will have always appreciated this experience. Pretty spectacular flowers. And I'll tell you, the plumbing was incredible, just like all the other construction. And here we are having a little fondue type dinner. Actually, you put the food in each of these little compartments and put cheese on top, and then you bake it. It's kind of like pizza without the gluten, the wheat. As you can see, I was fascinated with the heating and the plumbing. Such an elaborate system, I couldn't possibly figure it out. Well, it was very, very wonderful. It was only 12 days, and you say a fond farewell to Zurich, and here we are at the airport, and we're about to deal with the nightmares of customs. So, thank you for coming on this trip with us, and send me an email. Tell me what you thought of Germany if you went to Germany. I guess that's about it. Thanks a lot for listening to this, and have a wonderful day.